Chief Futurist at Futurist.com, researcher, keynote speaker, author, and all around just a great dude. Nikolas Badminton joining us on Canada Now. And Nick, this week we talk about this because recently someone entered an art competition with an AI-generated piece and won the first prize.
Yeah, it doesn't really surprise me, Jeff. There's this big foray. There's this huge amount of excitement. I've got tons of friends that play around with, generative art using artificial intelligence tools, and there's a few out there that are really cool. DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion's like the new hot one. But this was someone that actually used a program called Midjourney, which I've played with, and it's incredibly powerful to generate high resolution art. But this particular artist, and I'm going to call Jason Allen an artist. He wrote a prompt, some words that created this amazing scene, and he obviously then upgraded it, used another AI tool called Gigapixel to upgrade that, and then put it onto a canvas, and then submitted it to this art category at the Colorado State Fair, Fine Arts Competition. And if you look at it, it's incredible. It looks fantastic.
Yes. And
do you know what? It beat out the other artists, and the other artists, they're really, really upset. So this is a really interesting territory that we're playing in now.
Well, okay. So what if, like, you could have a competition that has a category that's like titled Artificial Intelligence Art?
Cool.
Where it's like, all right, you know what you're walking into. You're not being duped. It's not taken over for anybody else. Yeah. And that's this portion of the competition. And what do you think? And then somebody wins that. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I think that's completely relevant. There's all of these different organizations are creating new categories. I think MTV just had best metaverse, which is absolutely ridiculous because it's just like best computer animation in a video. It's kind of interesting. So create new categories, create relevancy. These art folk can be really, really stodgy and not want to change. And, this isn't art. But I got into this big spat with another futurist guy. He's very, very smart guy. And, is this art? Is this creativity? He was actually talking about creativity. But then I was like, okay, I like a lot of modern art. I like a lot of challenging modern artists. So Andy Warhol, let's look at Andy Warhol. He took pictures. He got his team at the factory to build screen prints, and then him and the team, it might not have even been him, actually created these screen prints. Is that not art? There's a couple of famous artists in the UK called Gilbert and George. They go around taking pictures of people in the East End of London, and then they mount them into frames in new ways. Is that not art? An NFT by the very sort of challenging British artist Damien Hirst. Is that not art? I think everything's on the table for art. I mean, if you can like a Rothko, you can like an AI piece of art. So, we really need to change our expectations around what creation is and creativity is, especially when you've got tools like this. And this tool, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion or whatever, is really shaking it up because, the people that have held the keys to, quote unquote, creativity are basically having the doors of their castles being fought down. Yeah. And the kids are there ready to burn their legacy to the ground and create something new and fresh.
Yeah. Well, I always think of shouldn't great art supposed to get people talking? And here it was, somebody created something, maybe not in the typical fashion, but they created something that has gotten a lot of people talking.
Yeah. And do you know what? It's interesting, but the people aren't talking about the content of the art necessarily, which is actually really fantastic.
Yes, it is.
They're talking about the process, but artists have had the process, spoken about. I mean, do you remember the band KLF back in the 90s?
Oh, yes.
They very famously took £1 million to a Scottish island and burnt it all. Right? It wasn't that the £1 million, being burnt was a piece of art. It was the challenge to the system. This is what art is. It's like protest. Yeah. People that chain themselves to gates as a protest. I mean, that can be seen as art and activism. And this is all good stuff to me, Jeff. I think people that are really upset are the people that could have won, but they didn't because they didn't do as good a job as a computer. And people are worried now because the ripple effects of that are everyone's out of a job. there is no real artist anymore. And suddenly, you know, we live in a world of algorithmic blandness, which is actually a really fair thing to start worrying about as well.
Well, look, by a computer, this created by a computer, but this was, you know, in this case, it's Jason Allen. And again, Jason Allen is president of the Colorado-based tabletop gaming company Incarnate Games.
Right.
But this, as you call him, artist, and some would, some wouldn't, he would have created this prompt. He would have created all of this technology
Exactly.
that would have made this piece. So wouldn't that be then considered human-made?
Yeah, exactly. So this is really interesting. I've literally been playing with this sort of stuff every day for the past sort of 4 or 5 weeks, and had lots of really exciting conversations. And I've used OpenAI's platform for GPT-3 to create stories. I've even asked it to create, you know, introductions to Futurist keynotes. It does an incredible job. Science fiction stories for my, you know, that feature my son. You know,
Cool.
it's incredible. And then you can build these pictures. It's really, really difficult. I've got a friend who is incredibly talented at doing this, guy called Drayla Bray, also a futurist. And on his Instagram, if you find Drayla Bray, he does really shockingly high resolution, you know, images of, you know, abstract entities and molecules and biology, all the way through to, you know, babies in NASA spacesuits. And it's kind of interesting to me, but the skill that he's got and the skill that others have is knowing how to perfectly write a phrase of a few words, including a bunch of different instructions for the software to create something that's exceptional. And that, I'll tell you, that is pure creativity, and that is true art.
And I think that answer right there would also be an answer to those that would be questioning whether or not this whole thing with Jason Allen and this piece that he's created, if that is fast forwarding the elimination of creative jobs, you know, because Allen did not wield any kind of a brush, digital or otherwise. He basically prompted the software to create this piece. And we talk about how that is a human element, but could that fast forward the elimination of jobs that are not only creative but that are of highly skilled individuals? I think there are a lot of people out there that are like, "Oh, this is another indication that computers are taking over." But I think you spelled it out nicely, where it's like, no, it's how humans are manipulating computers for a result.
Yeah, I always talk about human and the machine. I also talk about that it's sort of overestimated how much artificial intelligence is going to change the world of work. I think like McKinsey or another ridiculous consultancy were out there saying 340 million or 365 million jobs will be lost worldwide due to AI. And it's like, you know what? Some jobs will go. So cars are going to drive themselves, and McDonald's are going to be fully automated, maybe with 1 or 2 people. Cool. Those kinds of jobs can disappear. But like what you're going to have is a lot of jobs are just going to have the tasks within them change.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting when we think about this. It's about human and the machine. It's not about the destruction of jobs or any kind of responsibility or task within them. It's about an leveling up of humans to like the next level and an ability and a capability to do something incredible, right? It's like being mad at someone that managed to run in a straight line, and then mad at the person that wore glasses because they couldn't see very well. It's ridiculous.
Okay, with this particular software, let's say, because Jason Allen says he's going to be publishing this special prompt that he used to create the piece at a later date. So, I mean, potentially one might look at that and say, oh, we might all have the ability to create something like this, which would be great. But what if this technology were only available to those who could really afford it? And then they're making a ton of pieces that are beautiful like this, that would sell for a lot of money. Is this the rich or close to rich becoming richer? Is this going to contribute to a greater divide, financially speaking?
I don't necessarily think so. Not with regards to these tools. And the people that develop these tools are staunchly open source. Sure, you could be an artist, that you could pay a development team to build a whole bunch of algorithms that does this thing specifically for you. But why would you do that when you've got all of this this mind share and this amazing these amazing platforms to use. Why would you do it? It makes no sense. So I don't get that. You know what? I actually think that you're going to have some artists stepping in and playing around with this software. And someone like Damien Hirst would do it, and it's still a Damien Hirst. So people need to relax, Jeff.
Yeah, well, I hear that, but you know what? People get worried. They're looking over their shoulder. They're wondering, am I next? Like, what is to come? So I can see how people would be worried, but I heed your advice on this.
If you're a great artist, you don't care what anyone else thinks.
Yes.
Right. Check this out.
Like me.
Like Andy Warhol, right? He himself, art is anything you can get away with. So do you know what? Let's just say that everything is art, and art is everything. And you know what? If we have to burn down the old institutions and the artists that need to protect some sort of ivory castle of creativity, well, do you know what? Those castles are going to be razed to the ground, and the kids are going to take over.